Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are taking a look at two different fusion archetypes to pair with Darklord. Darklord needs a little bit of help getting across the line sometimes, and quite frankly, some of these archetypes are pretty synergistic. We're going to take a look at the two fairy kind of fairy fusion archetypes in Melodious and Gem Knights that pair fairly well with Darklords. So first and foremost, we have this deck list here with the Melodious cards, and the big advantage that Melodious has is Ostinato. Both of these archetypes basically have a one-card combo that does a whole bunch and gets you into the Darklord combo as well, off of a fusion spell. So for Melodious, it's Ostinato. I said that really weird. Ostinato. I still said that weird. Anyway, this card allows you, if you control no monsters, to fusion summon a Melodious using two monsters from hand or deck as material. This generally will summon Baka, which Baka on summon will then summon another guy, allowing you to immediately, because you now have two fairies, to go into Condemned. Condemned can then be used to go into the full Darklord combo off rip. It's very nice. On top of that, you also get a whole bunch of additional bodies and can potentially go into something like Etoil, which is also a fairly strong monster. The ability to go into Etoil is pretty rare, but it technically is possible. So, there you go. As for the rest of the archetype, or for the rest of the deck, it's pretty simple. The rest of the Melodious cards are just the two pendulums. We have 2 couplet and 3 refrain. These are just additional copies of your fusion material, right? And then we're also playing Concerto, which is required because you do have to search it with the couplet so that you can actually use it as a fusion material. It is kind of a brick, but notably, this card just allows you to fusion summon a fairy fusion monster, which is actually pretty nice. So being able to search out an additional fusion, and specifically one that can be utilized with Darklord, is pretty useful. On top of that, we have the regular Darklord cards here. We have the Dekuti, we have Golgullet, we have Nastin, we have Indulge, we have Eggshell, and we have Morningstar, as well as the spells, Banishment, Contact, and the one Rebellion and Sanctified for our traps. And Dance as our other spell. I consistently forget about this card. As for the rest of the cards, it's a bunch of non-engine, which you can see we still have tons of room for. Now, I am playing over 40 cards, so maybe it's not worth it to play over 40, maybe cut some of the non-engine. But I think one of the problems that Darklord has is going second, just in general. And so having non-engine to kind of either slow down or stop the opponent, I think is pretty important. Notably, we can play the Heralds. The only one that's really worth playing, in my eyes, is Herald of Orange Light. But we will take a look at the Gem Knight list, playing both Herald of Orange Light and Green Light, because in that deck, being able to pitch your fairies is actually more advantageous. So, we're also playing the Droll, Maxi, Ash, Fua, and Imperm, and then one apiece of Droplet and Crown. We also have Called By in here, as well as Foolish Burial. As for the extra deck, it's pretty simple. The 3 Melodious monsters, realistically, you could cut Etoil, as I previously mentioned. The 2 apiece of First and Evening Star Darklord, and then 1 Chaos Angel, which can be made via the level 6 Golgullet or its tokens, as well as any of your refrain. So, or, to be fair, any of your other Darklords as well. But if you use both refrain and Golgullet, you then have the ability to go into a light and dark Chaos Angel, which is pretty nice. We're also playing Typhon. Typhon's pretty solid in this deck, just in general. Typhon's really strong. We have the Condemned. This is also one of the advantages of playing a secondary engine, which is Mirage, or Herald of Mirage Lights, which allows you to negate a spell trap. That's it. You just pitch a fairy, negate a spell trap is pretty useful. And so playing additional fairies means that you're more likely to see those fairies and then can more effectively use this card. I don't like playing it in the pure Darklord variants. One, because it's not all that easy to get access to. There's not a lot of monsters you want to link off into this. But 2, and more importantly, you don't have a lot of material in hand that you can like send to the graveyard to trigger its effect or to have it live. So for the most part, I don't make it or play it in pure, But it's still very good and is a nice advantage for a lot of these other decks. We also, of course, have SP Rahamu and then the Underworld Goddess. And let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performed. Alrighty, here we are going first, and you can see that we have Couplet here in our hand, which we can actually make use of pretty much immediately. First and foremost, we're going to go for the Banishment, which does meet the Ash Blossom. Okay, that's fine. Now, notably, if we want to use the Couplet, we have to use it first. We can't have any other monsters in order for you to add the Spell Trap. If you do not control any other face of monsters other than Melodious monsters, you can add a Melodious Spell Trap. So now we can grab Concerto, and this just gives us an additional fusion monster. Since we already have the Golgullet in hand, I'm going to go for the Indulged, and have Indulged go for the Dehuti and grab Ixchel. The other reason that we're doing this is because, again, Concerto allows me to fusion summon, so I don't necessarily need to resolve either of these to still get the Golgullet Engrave to get the Search. Since we drew Crown, we can just grab the Droplet here. We're going to go for the Ixchel, then link off into Condemned, activate the effect of the Condemned. I'm just going to pitch to the Concerto at this point. We still have Dance in hand, and now we can go for the Golgullet with the Contact. We're going to grab our 2 tokens, and then go for Dance into Evening Star, activate the effect of the Evening Star to set the Banishment and the Sanctified. Realistically, this is just a bad play. Should have grabbed the Rebellion. That's just the better option there, since I already have a bunch of effect negation specifically, so adding non-effect negation, but destruction would have been a little bit better. Luckily, we can just search out the other one, but we can only place so many cards, so bit of a goof on my part. I just keep the Droplet in hand instead, so we'll see if that comes to bite me in the butt. We're playing against a Naya Craft, which is kind of interesting. I'm guessing what's happening here is that they have the... I know they set one just without activating, so they just set one, which means it's one of the lower level ones. And then I'm guessing this is like the Destruction Protection one, which is fine. But at this point, we could just go for the Herald and negate. Pop. Then they're dead. So... they concede there. Good game. We had a myriad of options available to us to prevent them from really doing anything, from Crown to Sanctified to everything else in between. So, good game. All right, and here we have our Gem Knight deck list. You can see it's a nice clean 40 this time, and it's pretty simple. It's significantly similar to that of Melodious, as opposed to something like Pure or even Sulfachord. But the idea is pretty simple. You use the Gem Knight cards, notably Gem Knight Brilliant Fusion, to go into the Lady Diamond, which would then, or Lady Rose Diamond, sorry, which would then allow you to send a fairy monster, sending Golgullet, and then triggering the Golgullet to grab up your piece that you may need, right? On top of that, you would then send Neparim, and then Neparim can summon itself to then trigger the whole Gem Knight line. This also gives you the ability to OTK with just Gem Knights as well, which can be pretty advantageous. If you get cut off of the Darklord stuff, or if you get, like, or if you just need to OTK effectively, you can pretty easily go through the Gem Knight stuff. So let's take a look at the deck and what it aims to do. First and foremost, we have the Gem Knights here. We have 3 Neparim and then 1 piece of Quartz and Hollow Core. These are pretty necessary. Hollow Core also requires you to play Gem Knight Fusion, but this card also is just very nice. Being able to go into a bunch of different Gem Knights is... I mean, it's pretty easy to actually get them onto the field, and a lot of them have some pretty advantageous effects. Rose Diamond, if your opponent interacts with you, you can pop a face-up card. Seraphonite gives you the ability to extra normal summon. And then Master Diamond gives you the ability to go into 3 different monsters from your extra deck, allowing you to OTK, right? You go Ruby, Aquamarine, and Topaz, and all of those basically give you enough damage to kill the opponent pretty easily. So there's that, while also dealing with a card on the field, right? You tribute off the Aquamarine to Ruby, and then it bounces a card. It's very, very powerful, and it's a pretty simple engine. It's not a small engine, but it's a simple engine in the sense that the idea is Brilliant Fusion does the whole line and gives you the ability to go into the Darklord stuff, and Neparim also kind of does the whole line by giving you the ability to grab like Quartz and then go into the Condemned, which is pretty solid. On top of that, you can also grab Dispersion here, which can either fusion summon or it can search. which is also very nice. And Hollow Core adds another point of negation for you, because in the grave, if you control a Gem Knight fusion, you can then negate one of your opponent's monsters' effects. Or actually, it's not even just monster effects. It's just an effect. Just they do a thing, you negate, and then you boost all of your guys. It's kind of obscene how powerful it is, and it's one of the big points of like setup for this archetype that is really advantageous. As for the rest of the cards here, you can see it's pretty simple in terms of the Darklord engine. In fact, we're only playing 1 Ixchel, but we're playing 3 Tahuti, 3 Gulgullet, and then the 1 Ixchel, the 1 Indulge, and the 1 Morningstar. Morningstar still does come up because of the ability to nuke the field, so that's pretty nice. And then we are, of course, playing the 3 Banishment, 1 Contact, 1 Dance, and 1 apiece of Rebellion and Sanctified. We also have the 1 Crown, and I'm not playing Droplet because while it could be useful, I feel like Crown is a little bit more useful. There's a lot of things that want to discard or send a card to the graveyard or something of that nature. So keeping your hand full isn't hard, but it's better to use it for other things. So generally speaking, I don't think Droplet's too necessary, and it's just kind of one of those cards that I wanted something to search with Gulgullet that wasn't one of the actual combo or I guess like standard Darklord pieces. I wanted a forbidden card to search, and Crown was just the better one. As for the actual non-engine, we have a bunch of it. Obviously, we're playing the Heralds. We're playing Herald of Greenlight at 3 copies, as well as Herald of Orange Light. And these are both really advantageous because, first of all, Herald of Greenlight is just nice right now. Just lots of spells that are very powerful. Being able to negate them is nice. But on top of that, you also have the ability to send one of your guys to the graveyard, either Neparim or Gulgullet, which then can get you basically the entire combo starter line, I should say. All of the combo starter line, which is pretty nice. And then, of course, Herald of Orange Light is insane. That's pretty much it. We're also playing Ash, Maxi, and Fua, which is pretty standard, and then the 1 Called By. As for the extra deck, I already mentioned all of the Gem Knights, which is pretty nice. We're also playing 2 apiece of First Darklord and Evening Star, and then just the rest of the like fairy links. Condemned, Herald of Mirage Light. Again, lots of ways to keep cards in your hand, but there are better uses, as I previously mentioned. Herald of Mirage Light being one of them, and then Rahamu. This card comes up significantly less. This could honestly be anything at this point. It's not nearly as mandatory as it is in something like pure Darklord or even just other variants of Darklord, but it's still nice to have. So there's that. And then we have Gem Knight Quartz, which is really, really nice. Being able to search out a Gem Knight and being able to fusion summon it using your banishment means that you are more easily able to recur your resources, just putting them back into the deck for then future use of either a Brilliant Fusion or a Gem Knight Fusion or something else of that nature. It's very nice. Let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performed. Alrighty, so here we are going first, and we have a fairly good hand, except for that. So we're going to see what we can do into the Maxi. Hopefully we can actually do something. It does end up resolving the Brilliant Fusion, which is pretty nice. So we do get to go for the Gulgullet here. And I don't go for the Neparim since I already have it in hand. So we send the Hollow Core there instead. Imperm kind of sucks. Can't really do anything about that. I also added Banishment here, and I could have added Crown, but I was like, okay, I'd rather have Banishment as a way to, effectively interact with my opponent. So hard to say. Either way, I do end up grabbing Dance here. We're going to link off. We're going to give them a few draws here. Not a whole lot that I can do about that. We're going to discard one. It's going to be met by Ash. Sure. I think I was grabbing like Morningstar there or something. It's not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination, but a little frustrating. We're going to go for the Dance here. We're going to have to use the Ixchel in hand. I don't have another card to use, so out comes the Evening Star. Give them an additional draw and go for the Evening Star effect. We're going to set a Contact, which doesn't have a target, but it's better than nothing because we already have the Banishment in Grave and then the Sanctified. We're going to grab Gulgullet, and now we have that online as well. And it's a modest board, but it does have a fair amount of interaction. We have Dance, which does have the ability to be used, which may not seem like it, but we have quite a few monsters that we can get, especially with this Gulgullet being able to resolve. We have Sanctified to be able to negate multiple times, if need be, right, with the Morningstar. And we also have the ability to reborn the Lady Rose Diamond and use the Hollow Core, which you will see comes up. So my opponent is playing something, not entirely certain, because at this point we just don't know. Theoretically, it could be Dark Magician. It could also be just Spellcaster stuff. And then I see the Fiendsmith hit the board. or hit the grave, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is just like spellcasters. So, out comes the Shining Sark here. They're going to activate the effect of the Shining Sark, and I'm like, I'm going to stop that. I think that is probably an effective stop. So, yeah, just, I don't want to have to deal with, what's this bucket? The level 8. Gandora. So, there you go. They are going to fusion summon using the Eye of Timaeus into Dark Magicians. So that's fine. Dark Magicians doesn't really do anything here. And then at this point, I now realize, oh, right, it's actually Dark Magicians. So out comes Dark Magical Circle. They're going to add Eternal Soul that they ended up seeing on the top of the deck. So that's pretty interesting. It does allow them to draw an additional card. Out comes the Magician Souls they searched earlier. And they're going to special summon the Dark Magician. Why did they special summon? They didn't want to draw? Okay, sure. They're going to attempt to banish. They banish the context. That's fine. I don't really care too much about that. It's annoying for certain, but it's not the end of the world. They're going to go for the Drill Beam here as well, because of course the Primate cards are in here. Out comes the D-Mod. Grab up the Gaze of Timaeus. Sure. We have really easy ways to deal with the... What's this bucket? Dragoon. He's not really an issue for us, so not really concerned about that. They're going to go for the SP. I'm going to go for the Sanctified here, just so that I can gain some life points. They are going to tag out since they can't target the Evening Star. And like, that's a-okay, because now I get to go for the Evening Star effect, and we are going to summon out a El Primero. However, because of the way that I have to do this, I can't actually just blow up the field here. That may seem counterintuitive. You're like, why would you not just blow up the field here? And the reason is because I actually need to be able to reborn the Lady Rose Diamond so that I have a negate. And this will actually come in handy. You'll see. Keeping this on the field is the reason I win this game. So, out comes Master of Chaos, and if you don't know how this card works, let me read one little effect for you guys. If you contribute one light and dark monster, banish all monsters your opponent controls. So, that doesn't target, it's not a destruction effect, and quite frankly, it immediately kills us if it resolves. So now we just have to basically keep this hollow core for that. They can do whatever else they want. I have an entirely untargetable board, so I'm not really concerned about anything that they're going to go for here. I know 2 of the cards in hand. I think one of them is a Dark Magician and one of them is a Drill Beam. So, again, not too terribly concerned. Yeah, they're going to go through the Fiendsmith line now. Hooray. Hip hip hooray. That's what I was trying to say. Outcome sequence, sure. They're going to go for the sequence effect. They're going to fusion summon it into Lacrima. They're going to activate the effect of the Lacrima. They're going to reborn. Sure. Outcomes not who I was expecting. WP Fancy Ball. A card that, I don't know, kind of does stuff. The problem with this is that they're going to mess it up. They're going to mess up the use of that card because out comes the Abawaq. Okay, cool. That card could have actually stopped the Hollow Core, and they just elected to not. Anyway, they're going to go for the Abawaq. They actually pitch the other Dark Magician, the Dark Magician of Black Magic, which is kind of funny, in order to go for the Fiendsmith, which then they're going to try to banish, and we can negate with the Hollow Core. They're going to set 2, and I was totally wrong about the Dark Magician. I forgot about it. I don't know what the other set card is, but alas, all of their cards come back, and that's fine. Again, our board's untargetable. They don't really have an effective way of dealing with it, so there's that. We're going to reborn here the Neparim. We're going to activate the effect of the Neparim. They're going to go for the Drill Beam. They're going to hit our Brilliant Fusion. Whoa, crazy. Who would have cared? Anyway, again, board untargetable. We're going to go for the Gemini Dispersion here, which is pretty nice, giving us either the ability to fusion or to search out an additional guy. Which is pretty nice. Cool. They're going to go for the Abawaq here in order to special summon, not anything else, which is kind of interesting. We're going to go for the Dispersion here. We're going to add back the Hollow Core. And I do a bit of a goof here, and I accidentally click Neparim. I wasn't trying to. I just clicked it. And, oops. However, it does actually end up baiting my opponent into going for the WP. So they activate the effect of the WP, which is fine. We're going to attempt to pop a card. I believe I pop the Dark Magical Circle. Oh, that's what it was. It was the Eternal Soul. We did know about this. I was just... I forgot about it in Duel, and I forgot about it again. So that's kind of funny. Anyway, out comes the Dark Magician again. That's totally fine. I don't really care about that because we do get to pop the Continuous Spell, which would have actually not done anything, to be fair. But that's fine. We're going to go for the Hollow Core here. Special summon out the guy just so that we can go for our Phantom Quartz. Phantom Quartz is going to activate. We're going to shuffle back a whole bunch of guys. That's fine. They're going to, of course, try and tag out with the SP Little Knight. But again, it doesn't really matter. We are going to have a well over lethal at this point. So shuffle back a whole bunch of guys. Go into the Master Diamond. Activate the effect of the Master Diamond. And from here, you can see the combo setup. I don't elect to go for the Topaz. While it does have the ability to attack a second time during battle phase, I don't need it here. So instead, I grab the additional protection because this protects your Gem Knights the first time they'd be destroyed. So instead, I go for the Rose Diamond. We're going to just tribute off the Aquamarine, bounce the Dark Magicians so that they don't special summon out their guys, and then just walk in for well over lethal. Good game. All right, and we're back with the decks. And quite frankly, as far as Melodious or Gem Knight go, both of them are pretty similar in my mind as to how useful they are for Darklord. And while Melodious, I think, is less advantageous because it is a little bit more stingy when it comes to the way that you can interact with your cards and what they provide, right? Like, you have to have no monsters. You have to, you know, you got to use your pendulum scales and all of that jazz. It can kind of be a little bit clunky in general. That being said, the deck itself functions still very similarly to that of Gem Knights. And while Gem Knights did perform, I don't know, maybe a little bit better, it didn't perform that much better. And the main reason for that is threefold. I have three different reasons as to why, or like just things that I learned with these decks. First and foremost, you can't get away from Darklord. If you're playing Darklord, there is a problem with Darklord. Every Darklord deck has, always, at every point, bricking. You will just not be consistent enough, regardless of how many cards you play, regardless of this or that or the other thing. If you're playing Darklord, you're not going to have consistency because there's so many random cards that you are going to need that require either a myriad of Darklords, a way to get them into the graveyard that's not consistent, or just like don't do anything immediately, right? They're also very susceptible to hand traps, right? Like Dehudi dies to pretty much everything. Indulge dies to everything, right? In Ixchel or Golgolet dies to a bunch of different things, right? So it's not a simple task to just make Darklord top tier, even if you throw a better engine in there. So yeah. And the second thing is that all of these engines kind of exacerbate a lot of the issues that Darklord has with specific non-engine and helps with other non-engine, right? So, for example, both Melodious and Gem Knight have the same issues, not the same issues, but like exacerbate the same issues that Darklord has, right? It doesn't make them any better into Droll or Fua or Maxi or even Perulia, right? Or that of, what is it? The Fallen and the Virtuous, right? All of them are still susceptible to these pretty staple non-engines. Nibiru is another example where it's like, yeah, these are cards that maybe won't always see play and maybe aren't currently seeing a ton of play, but are so consistently playable that generally speaking, being more susceptible to them is not great, right? As is Darklord, and it just doesn't help to add more combo pieces to that. That being said, it does make them less susceptible to things like Ash Blossom, to things like Imperm, or Ghost Spell, or something of that nature, just because you have more pieces to work with, right? And the third thing is that none of these really help going second. Yes, Gem Knight theoretically can OTK more effectively because of the ability to, like, go into, you know, Master Diamond and all of that, right? Which does help, right? However, Darklord, if you were to cut the engine of Gem Knights, you would still end up with a bunch of non-engine, right? A bunch of pieces to basically slow down the opponent and prevent them from playing the game. The only downside is that, like, oh, then you wouldn't have your own engine to play into those established boards. So while it is arguably a little bit more helpful, and same thing with Melodious, right? Like, Melodious does give you the ability to just put a bunch of bodies onto field, which then can be utilized to go into the Darklord stuff or to go into Melodious cards, and does kind of help going second. Neither of them really change the math on that too much in a way that truly matters or that feels advantageous. Most of the time it is just a matter of it's slightly better, or hey, now you're slightly better going first. And I think that is, it's good, but again, that going second aspect really is hindered. That being said, all of them, any variant basically, helps you going first, which is a big boon, because this deck doesn't really have the best board going first. Specifically, it is extremely weak to spell traps. And being able to add additional ways to use Herald of Mirage Light is pretty advantageous. Also, adding in ways to utilize things like Herald of Green Light as well, pretty advantageous. So adding additional pieces that you can use to cut the opponent off of important spell traps, specifically in this deck, right? You can end with 3 different spell trap negations with Hollow Core, Herald of Green Light, and Herald of Mirage Light, giving you the ability to negate many of those high impact cards. Whereas the Melodious engine doesn't quite do that, but I think just generally gives you more of an advantage in terms of card advantage, because each individual card feels more tailored to getting into the Darklord stuff and just putting more bodies onto the field that you can utilize and kind of bridging the gap against more non-engine, right? Against more hand traps and what have you. I will say overall, I think Gem Knight's a little bit better. Not a lot, but noticeably. And I haven't played the Soulful Cord engine. What can I say? As far as Darklord goes, though, I don't think any of these change the math too much. Unless you just play Gem Knight instead and add, like, a Gulgullet in your deck to search Crown or something of that nature. Yeah, realistically, the Darklord variant, or any Darklord variant, has the same issues as any other Darklord. So, doesn't change much on that. Overall, though, they're nice. They're cool additions that you get to play. So, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much appreciated. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.